So hi everyone, today I'm speaking to Dr. Leila Alieva. She's an Associate of REES, Oxford School for Global and Area Studies. Hi Leila.
Hi.
So listen, I have several brief questions related to Ukraine I wanted to ask you. So the first one would be, what is your view on the latest developments in Ukraine?
Well, in general, my view is that this war should not have happened. It should have been prevented. It should have been anticipated or stopped at the very beginning with the consolidated response from the West, United West mainly. And what's happening now is just another confirmation of the seriously delayed reaction of the West to this war. And it basically exposes all the weaknesses of the, possible reaction or preparedness of the West to such similar adventures, military adventures of the ill-driven leaders. So I view it as just a very natural consequence of the delayed response of the international community to what's happening in Ukraine.
So you recently contributed to one of the reports on scenarios of development of the war. And I think it was called Revenge, Implosion, or Reform. Yeah. So maybe you could touch upon briefly on this latest policy brief and its key takeaway messages.
Yeah, I think the authors of report, which I was just one of many contributors to, try to develop a quite clear vision and possible scenarios which might happen in any of the developments. So these are scenarios which assume Putinism without Putin, the revanchism in Russia, instability or decentralization of Russia. And in all cases, I would say that this is the definitely one idea is very clear, that there should not be a place to victory of Russia. Because that will mean the victory of the regime, that will mean the victory of a spoiler, the spoiler who decides to violate international law, international borders, internationally recognized borders and rules of behavior, which opens further violation, way for further violations. And it's much broader issue because it's also, we see that this is a clash of, as many times Ukrainians were saying, is a clash of different values, it's clash of freedom and people preferring to live under the free and democratic conditions compared to the autocratic, repressive regime, which is trying to win over now the people who are of Ukraine who are trying to resist. So it's very important also in the context of the current trends of the decline in democracy in certain parts of the world. And so it does have a critical meaning and does play a critical role for the outcome of the struggle.
So do you think that the current, because it talks about the defeat of Russia and those scenarios, but do you think there is a likelihood that in light of current issues Ukraine faces, that there might be and need to start negotiations or do some other things. I don't know, like, because the situation is so critical, it seems like it might be very problematic for Ukraine to overcome Russia this year, even with the West support. Yeah.
I think there was always a lack of creative decisions in this situation, because this is not a standard situation, definitely. There is a lot of psychology involved in the aggression, the psychological motivation. On the one hand, there is a perception of Ukraine as a weak and legitimate target from the side of Putin. At least it was in the beginning, legitimate because that's how he perceived the international relations, purely in realist term, and the division in the spheres of influence, in the old Cold War style. So on the one hand, there is this psychology of perception of the international relations. On the other, there is a competition of the status. So it's a status contest when Putin tries to assert himself at the expense of Ukraine and show to the rest, the West, that I'm also powerful and I'm strong. So these are a lot of psychological issues. One of them is also that expansion has this value of boosting power. And I think the physical expansion should be devalued somehow in this relationship. In general, what Putin is trying to do is very outdated. It's pre-modern because he wants to assert himself first through the spoiler actions, not through bringing some good, but as a spoiler. And second, by simply violating or expanding physical size of Russia. And I don't think that people are ready to sacrifice their lives endlessly to serve this goal. So I think he will inevitably lose. The problem is at what expense. So Ukrainians should not suffer so much, and the cost should have not been so high for Ukrainians. I think many things should have been done in the beginning, like closing the airspace. There were a lot of attempts to bring the attention to that. But, these were all missed opportunities. Yes, territorial question is something which should not be rewarded and appeased, and the aggressor should not feel that, territory, I can get much if I occupy much. So the more I occupy, the more I get in response. So this shouldn't be the case. But I think it's not also about diplomacy. It's also about the as I said, some creative approaches which might undermine certain, certain concepts which the aggressor is trying to play with. That's my view.
So, but you think if, for instance, something happens and he is defeated, but the system will prevail, right? Because all of them, the same thinking, the same patterns, the same perception of Ukraine as a nation that doesn't exist, yeah, it will prevail.
I think we should not overestimate the speed of the modernization and development and awareness and spread of information. Autocrats usually manipulate people, but there is also a very powerful tool to counter it, which didn't exist before, for instance, in the previous aggressive wars, which is social networks, for instance. And I think people have the alternative source of information. At the moment, they don't select to listen to those sources or to look at these sources because of the cognitive dissonance and attempt to protect their identity. But I think with the defeat of the regime, when there is a lot of alternative voices will come up, both from outside and from inside, when there will be more freedom for access to the information. I think that whatever was seen as a support will appear to be just a conformist behavior of the majority of population trying to protect their identity. I think, in terms of societal attitudes, I think there are many opportunities to actually influence them in the right direction.
Right, I see. So do you think that in terms of, like, you mentioned social media and I assume also like informational tools that Ukraine can use to counteract those Russia's false narratives, and Europe, you think more could be done, like in Ukraine and Europe? Because it seems like in a way Russia has succeeded in this promoting this narrative of Ukraine fatigue and this failure of the military aid and other messages.
Yeah, I think the international community should actually become stricter in terms of both making Russia comply with the international law on the one hand, also to make Russia feel that Ukraine is not alone vis-à-vis Russia. So there is a strong consolidated front of the both international community or consolidated West. So that all should be actually increasing. So as you said, there wouldn't be this effect of fatigue, etc. But once the victory or defeat is of this regime is achieved, it will actually contribute to greater realist approach of the Russian people as well to what's happening, because something similar was happening in the 2020 after the military return of the lands in Azerbaijan-Armenian war. And that was immediately gave a rise to a lot of grassroots communications, dialogues, exchange of opinions. So people started to more openly communicate to each other. And, it's in a sense was bringing the country back to a realist basis, because I think James Scher was speaking about the whole that Putin is basing his policy purely on a few ranges of myths. And these myths, I think one of the major results of the defeat of Putin will be the destruction of these myths, or one of the myths. I mean, one of the myths already is destroyed. And it's destroyed because he was thinking that, Ukraine is means, it's a tool, it's not the major motivation for him. It was not so much Ukraine, but it was attempt to assert himself vis-a-vis big powers, that I'm big power too, and I'm entitled to do that. But then when the Ukraine started to resist and showed enormous courage, enormous resilience, and enormous motivation to confront such a huge enemy, I think it turned into a motive itself. So I think that's Putin started to take Ukraine much more seriously than before. And so I think once he's deprived of this myth that Ukraine is just one of these small countries and can take over, and the international community is not corrupt as he thinks, and he thinks that he can easily, bring a divide in it. They can't consolidate because of their being corrupt. So I think once he faced that failure of the myths, it will be much easier, I think, to at least try to bring Russia to the in the right direction.
But in the foreseeable perspective, it seems like it will be hard, because it seems like they are ready to pursue this war of attrition, and as they had like a recent new reorganization of like the top people of the among the military. So it seems like they're ready to just exhaust Ukraine and just gradually like split it. I don't know what's the plan, but it seems they just want to go all the way.
Yeah, I think he should be shown that he's gonna deal with the extremely serious consequences if he continues doing that. And I think that's what requires creativity from the side of the West, and the whole intellectual sort of resources of the West should be directed to that, how to show him that the most serious consequences are really going to take place if he continues to do that.
Right. Thanks, Leila. Thanks. And is there anything else you would like to add that maybe I didn't cover by my questions?
Oh, it's a long story, so maybe next time when you decide to